Welcome back to the second part of our conversation with Dr. Jun Wang. In the first episode, Dr. Wang introduced us to his incredible journey in atmospheric sciences, along with the groundbreaking work his lab is doing at the University of Iowa. Today, we'll delve deeper into the innovative technologies his team is developing, including satellite remote sensing and low-cost environmental sensors. He will also share how these advancements are helping us better understand and combat the pressing challenges of wildfires, air quality, and climate change. We'll also explore some of the exciting interdisciplinary projects his lab is leading, which aim to support rural communities and address climate change at the neighborhood scale. My name is Lauren Lavin, and this is Plugged Into Public Health, a student-run podcast from the University of Iowa College of Public Health. So let's get plugged into public health. Okay, talking about some of these components a little bit more specifically. So the satellite remote sensing, does your lab create the sensors or do you program them?
We don't create satellite sensors. We put the requirement for engineering to design the satellite sensors.
Okay.
We suggest what angle, how many angles the satellite will be looking at, what the wavelengths they should be designed for. We basically put a requirement to say this is what we want. And then the engineer will come back to say, okay, well, you're a scientist. That's a Christmas wish list. Guess what? We cannot do it with the current technology. This is the best thing I can do. If I do this, how much information can you lose, sacrifice for science? We do a lot of push and pull until we finalize the best instrument to serve our scientific purpose. So we don't make satellites. We simulate their operations in the computer.
With that, how has the satellite remote sensing impacted people's ability to research air quality, weather, and climate change? Has it improved their ability to do that?
Let's give you one example. For example, satellite, you carry a camera in space. They're basically like you carry your iPhone into space. You take pictures. But by just looking at one picture, you know, oh, these are trees, there are smoke layers, things like that. But you got thousands of those pictures. There is no way by just looking eyes that you can look at all of them. So we design algorithms to extract critical information that is relevant for weather and climate prediction. For example, we design novel algorithms that we can extract the layer information, the height information of smoke layer from those images. So all of a sudden, instead of a two-dimensional picture, you got 3D information. And why that is important? Because if the layer of the smoke particles are way above the surface, then they are not going to touch down the surface. So the air quality will be good. We shouldn't worry about it. But if the smoke layer is very close to the surface, then our air quality will be affected by that. Previously, if by only looking at two-dimensional image, you don't get that kind of information. But we designed the algorithm using physics, using the spectrum, and together with the models and together with computing, we are able to extract that information. And now we know where that smoke layer is located in the vertical. Then we put in the model to predict, are they going to reach to, for example, Washington, D.C. today? Are they going to touch down to the Washington, D.C. quality layer over there? Or they actually pass over up in the sky into the Atlantic Ocean? So that information is one step further because you know where are they and you can predict where or what is going to happen. Another example is a fire, right? Fire could be smoldering or could be flaming, right? Flaming part of the fire is very important because the flaming generally is occurring in the atmosphere. And the wind carries that flame to the nearby trees. That's where the fire lines get propagate and the fire grow. Mm-hmm. So for firefighters, they are looking at which part of that fire is flaming and they want to block that flaming. So we designed an algorithm to look at that kind of fire lines. By using what? By using firelight, we can see from space, from satellites. So at nighttime, fire light can be seen from satellites. So we designed an algorithm for that.
Wow.
To detect the fire lines. And then in that way, you know which part of how the fire parameter will be growing. And the firefighters can go there to help them to plan the resources they have to mitigate the fire, to suppress the fire. This time in the Western US, the fire is huge. And guess what? Because of global warming, we are seeing more and more nighttime fires. So instead of the firefighter normally say, well, in the nighttime cools down, the fire will stop, We work more on the daytime. We work much less in the nighttime. Now they have to not work around the clock. So the more knowledge they know where the fire and flaming part is, the better for them to plan their resources, limited resources, to best use our resources for them to maximize their effort to suppress a fire. So those are two examples I give you. And because we know voluminous smoldering, we can better estimate how much CO2 goes to the atmosphere, how much particles go to the atmosphere, and then better prediction of air quality. So those things are all together, come together because we have sunlight remote sensing. So those are two examples, just give you a flavor of how things work.
Yeah, those are great examples. And I feel
Yeah.
like every year we hear about more and more wildfires and how destructive they are. So
Yeah.
anything that can be used to help mitigate those or stop them faster is obviously very beneficial.
Yeah.
With those sensors, are there different like levels of cost with them? Are there low cost sensors and high cost sensors, or are they all kind of the same?
Oh, for the satellite sensors that go into the space, there are seven in NASA's terminology. There are what they call different classes of satellite missions. There's class C, there is a class D. So different classes come with different the price range. The bigger ones is one satellite can carry multiple sensors. And those are on the order of billions of dollars.
Oh my gosh.
The one that literally with new technology, cheaper launch cost, many of the satellites we call small satellites, these are on the order of, $100 million satellite mission to $200 million.
That's nothing, right?
But that's still huge. But I have seen some of the smaller ones cost about maybe $30 million, but it's getting cheaper. Yeah, just give you an idea of that. These are satellite sensors. In my lab, another side of things actually doing low-cost sensors to study weather and the climate at the ground. But we can talk about later if you're interested.
No, I'd love to talk about the low cost sensors. So your lab is developing these low cost environmental sensors, and they're different than the satellite sensors.
They are different in satellite sensors.
Can you explain them?
Okay, those are called something called Internet of Things, IoT. Those sensors are very, very small and they are low power, and you can program them to make them smart. So we did in the last couple of years, we designed a sensor called I stands for I1 May. So you got iCanopy, right? You have iPhone, you have iTunes, you have iPad. Now you got iCanopy. Just remember that iCanopy. Okay. So iCanopy is a system that can measure the air temperature, relative humidity, and the pressure at 2-meter altitude. And then we have a tube that carries a wire and measures soil temperature and soil moisture. It's all designed and manufactured here in the University of Iowa.
Wow.
The integration of the PCBs, the chips, and all that is actually manufactured by the Council Bluffs. Then we have students here to manufacture them. So those sensors, each of them cost about $250 to $300, but they are powered by solar panel. And we design a firmware such that if the power is low for a couple of days in the winter time, there are not much of solar. The sensor is intelligent enough to lower its frequency to sample the data, to save the power. Opposite is true in the summer. If you have too much solar energy coming in, we increase the frequency of sampling to use more power. There was also cases where your Wi-Fi, your home Wi-Fi maybe is down for 1 day or two. We don't want our sensor to keep trying to connect your Wi-Fi and lose the energy. So they will key your sensor for a couple of times. If not work, then wait for 6 hours. So make it very intelligent. So we have iCanopy sensor that measures air and soil. Sometimes in the urban areas, we don't want to measure too much soil because it's all concrete. Then we just have air component. We call it iAir. iCanopy and iAir sensors. Yeah.
That's great. So do you sell these sensors to companies, or is this for research purposes?
Those are all funded by the federal government, by USDA and now by NSF. We basically share the sensors with any citizens who want to use them, allow them to put it in their backyard. So we call it citizen science. Because the more citizens we involve, we know more about the weather in different places. We know how the weather look like, how the temperature variation in different neighborhoods. Let's get to something called environmental justice kind of side of the things, right? Some poor neighborhood may don't have too much canopy. The air temperature in the summer could be much hotter than a wealthy, not high-end neighborhood where you got a lot of trees, you got a lot of lawns and all that. We see the heat index can change by 30 degrees.
Wow.
Guys like Omaha for the same day because they live in different neighborhood. So by monitoring those, we are getting the information that we never had before. But this information can be used by the city council, by the townships to say, well, if I'm planning them, maybe I can put more shelters in this neighborhood that are needed. Because on one hand, this neighborhood, they don't have resources for AC, but on the other hand, their environment also is not helping them to have a cooler temperature. So those are the places that need our resources. We can provide that kind of intelligence for the decision makers to see how they should allocate their resources. Yeah.
That's so interesting that the sensors can help with something like environmental justice. That's obviously very important and something that we
Yeah.
probably don't think about all that often.
Right.
Moving into climate change, I know you touched on it just a little bit. One, because it can be a contested topic. Is the climate changing? And two, how does your research help us better understand the impact of climate change?
Climate is definitely changing. No matter what data we look at them, the temperature is definitely increasing in global average. There are definitely have more fires.
Mm-hmm.
We had a study, for example, just published last December. We feel in the last 20 years, the fire has increased in intensity and frequency. And as a result, it leading to poor air quality in the western part of United States. So if you put the epidemiology statistics into your equation, we find that the increase of fire has led to the increase of the loss of the life on the order of 600 people per year.
Wow.
That rate is 600 per year in the last 10 years in the western part of the United States. This does not mean that the individual life is lost because of fire pollution. We're talking about statistically. If you assume the average people's lifespan is 79 years, and then you look at the fixed model, if you exposure to high concentration of pollution, your lifespan may be shortened by 1 year or two, and then you multiply that shortened 1 year or two with the population, then you divide by 79, effectively, statistically, how many people's life will be lost?
Yep.
600. So in comparison, how many life is lost directly due to the fire damage per year in the United States? Less than 100. Let's get this number right. Right. So the air pollution, because they spread out by air, that impact on the quality of life is very significant.
Yeah.
So we get back to climate change. We also see more kind of after the norm weather patterns. In the wintertime, all of a sudden, temperature can go up to 50, 60 degrees.
Yep.
And literally, I lived in the Great Plains for probably about 17 years. Like this year, right? This wintertime, literally, you have 4 seasons of the clothes on your coach in the wintertime, right?
Yep.
Like January, one day got 50, 60 degrees, you wear short pants outside. Another day got so heavy, you wear two clothes.
Yeah.
You literally have everything, 4 seasons of the things, not in your closet, but in your couch.
Yep.
So those things definitely are changing. And my research, for example, to study how those particles, the smoke particles, how the greenhouse gases are there, how they are distributed in the atmosphere. And then from there, we want to understand how their impact on the long-term climate change. So,
Yeah.
but if you getting a lot of smoke in the air, then your surface temperature actually will cooling down because you are blocking a lot of radiation reaching the surface. But is that good? Probably not, because in many ways you got a lot of poor air quality, and also those smoke particles can deposit into the plant, and that affects their photosynthesis. So air pollution, thinking about dust particles, if the leaves are very dirty, they cannot get the sunlight to grow. So those things all matters, and we are trying to use sunlight to better understand how those fires affects climate change.
If you had a suggestion, what are some of the solutions to mitigating climate change?
That's a very good question. I would just say the scientist has thinking to injecting some particles into what we call stratosphere. They're about 10 kilometers above the surface. So imagine if we inject quite a bit of the very bright particles over there, it will take 2 or 3 years for them to come down to the surface. On top of it, they're shining, so they block a fraction of sunlight back to space rather than coming into the surface. We have to be also very cautious because we don't fully understand the model of nature. If you want those things called geoengineering, once you change them, there may be some unknown processes that we have not thought of, maybe have adverse consequences. So we have to be very careful about that. That's where we have to study more about that. I would say the best way to mitigate climate change that we know that we can do on our own is try to mitigate the emission of the greenhouse gases, right? Be more reliant on renewable energy, less on fossil fuel. That part we can do. Be more aware to be environmental friendly. If today, like temperature like this, maybe you don't need to turn your AC. Save some energy. We can do bit by bit to mitigate climate change. And certainly, nationwide, this is a global effort to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions around the planet everywhere. And you need the data. You need to put the science and the technology there to say, well, we have a good understanding. Those are the objective data, and how we can work together to share the vision, to cut our emissions in different countries, to better Earth's climate for future. Those things need science and technology there. So I would say we are slowly getting there. I think there are more and more consensus that we want to mitigate climate change and things like that. Yeah.
Are some countries more responsible for climate change than other countries, or some that pollution that impacts it?
That part is very difficult to pinpoint which countries, which area, and which year, things like that, because the Earth's work of the system is very complex. And then CO2 or the greenhouse gases can be in the atmosphere. Once it's emitted, in average, can be in the atmosphere on the order of 70 to 100 years. We're talking about the emissions since the industrial, or how this greenhouse gases has been affects climate change, how the human activity has been. So it's very difficult to pinpoint that. There are things we do know, which is good, is the forest, right? Forest can suck up a lot of the CO2, become biomass. There are a lot of ways that we can reduce the CO2 emissions by using electric cars, by using renewable energy, by using other form of energy. There are also a lot of ways by being thrifty, better planning of using water and natural resources. So I would say it's better to think how to work together to mitigate that rather than to say, well, which one?
Yeah.
I want to be very constructive, I would say.
Yeah. Rather than pointing fingers, it's better to
Yes, right.
Good. That's a great way to put it. You gave us so much great information. We're nearing our last question now. What are the next big questions or challenges that you and your lab hope to address in atmospheric and environmental sciences going forward?
I just want to share with you one of the projects recently just funded by NSF. It involves about 10 faculty in the University of Iowa from 4 colleges.
Wow.
Together with probably another 10 faculty from 3 other universities. So we are trying to study and help rural communities to manage severe weather and climate change at the neighborhood scale. So we'll have a collaboration between Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, and Arkansas. Now you think about these 4 states. They are more or less geographically neighboring with each other, right? They're kind of one are neighboring with another. Therefore, the air definitely move around in those 4 states. And this is the first time we're collaborating to using local sensors, iCanopy, iAir, to study the temperature and the soil in those 4 states. We will collect the data and look at the neighborhood, the rural neighborhood. Because I would say rural communities are the ones that are disproportionately affected by climate change. On one hand, they lack the resources like big cities. And on the other hand, their economic backbone is actually agriculture. So they're relying much more on the weather, how the weather affects their crop yield, how the climate change affects them. On one hand, they lack the resources to mitigate. On the other hand, their economy relying a lot of climate, how the climate can change affect their economy. So we want to put some sensors there. And in the past, we really don't know how the climate is changing or temperature look like in this rural neighborhood, because most weather stations are located in the urban
Right.
urban areas. So now we're going to actually have, for the first time, we're not going to measure them in the neighborhood, in the rural community, but also in the farmland. We're going to put a sensor in the cornfield, measure the soil temperature, air temperature in the soil. Those things has not been very done. The observation in the past has been very limited. So we're going to use this data and to better predict the weather change. And then on top of it, we're also going to bring the climate prediction model output. And together with the sensor information, we're going to say, okay, in the next 10 years, the climate change will lead to temperature in this neighborhood, temperature change by how much. So we'll be able to bring the climate prediction used to be in a very, very cost resolution on the order of 50 to 80 miles, now get to neighborhood scale. So that have a tangible deliveries about how the weather and climate is going to change to the citizens that actually live there, right? So they feel it's tangible because the data is measured in my backyard. They have bring more fidelity because they know that's a center there. That's in my backyard, the temperature measure. So they can have more objective data with more fidelity, more trustworthy data to them. So we try to engage them more help them to better plan for the future as climate and weather continue to change. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you guys are absolutely filling a need and doing something that will have a tangible impact on some of the minorities in American society. With that, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. This was such an informative discussion. And I think we touched on so many topics that our listeners will enjoy hearing. So I really appreciate this. Thank you, Dr. Wang.
Thank you, Lauren. It's my great pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for the second half of this engaging discussion with Dr. Jun Wang. Today we explored how Dr. Wang's lab is pushing the boundaries of environmental research through the use of satellite technology, low-cost sensors, and community-focused projects. His insights into the future of atmospheric science and the importance of data-driven solutions for rural communities highlight how interdisciplinary collaboration can make a tangible difference in our fight against climate change. We hope you enjoyed this two-part series and gained a new appreciation for complexities of our atmosphere and the innovative work being done to protect it. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more enlightening conversations in the weeks ahead. This episode was hosted and written by Lauren Lavin and edited and produced by Lauren Lavin. You can learn more about the University of Iowa College of Public Health on Facebook. Our podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help support the podcast, please share it with your colleagues, friends, or anyone interested in public health, and be sure to subscribe to the show. Have a suggestion for our team? You can reach us at cph-gradambassador@uiowa.edu. This episode is brought to you by the University of Iowa College of Public Health. Until next week, stay healthy, stay curious, and